Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1659A, and today's date is September 9th, 2018, and the title of the episode is, We Are Watching a Coordinated Economic Takedown of the Old System. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Bill Holter. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you to the interview. Or you can come over to x22report.com or newsentinel.com. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the interview right on the site. Or go to Steemit, that is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play it right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, this great plan to bring down the central bank, get rid of the deep state, involves many different moving pieces. And we're seeing a lot of this all happen at the same time. And we need to understand with the economy, we're seeing a lot of things out there. And of course, the mainstream media, the central banks, they're out there saying, listen, what Trump and those behind him, what they're doing right now is going to destroy the economy. It's going to bring down the global system. It's going to freeze the trade system. Well, yeah, that's what it's all about. Because remember, this entire system is designed to help the central bankers, help the deep state. It was not designed to help the people. And what's happening right now, it's being dismantled one piece at a time. And the only way to do this is to completely collapse the system, and while you're doing this, redesign the entire system in the way it works, because it was designed in a certain way, and this way was the globalist system. Now we're taking it all apart, dismantling it one piece at a time, and redesigning it. And while you're doing this, you're going to hear the mainstream media, the central bankers, all of them out there saying that, this is going to destroy the entire system. And of course, yes, it is. That's the whole point of this. But we need to understand what is happening under the hood. We need to understand exactly what this plan is. So it's a little bit clear to everyone why it is happening this way and why they're talking about trade wars and tariffs and why Trump and those patriots are doing this. They're doing this for a simple reason. Everything that was designed and built and created was for a very specific type of economy, and that was a central bank globalist type of system. Everything now is being redone for a system that will benefit the people. Let's take a look at what the Federal Reserve is doing right now. They've dropped interest rates since 2008. Now, since they dropped interest rates, has this helped the everyday person? Well, no, the savings, people aren't making interest on their savings. The pension system, that is not working out well because they thought they were going to be getting 7-8% interest. This is what they based the entire pension system off of. And it really hasn't helped the everyday person. Now, has it helped the banks? Yes, it has. It gave them easy money. It gave them the ability to borrow at no interest whatsoever. Now, were these banks loaning people money? Not really. So let's take a look at interest rates going back in time for a sec here. In the 1980s, sharply higher interest rates during the term of the Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker essentially destroyed the housing finance sector in the U.S. Fixed-rate mortgages and rising interest expenses led to widespread insolvency in the savings and loan sector that cost U.S. taxpayers hundreds of billions in losses. Since the 2008 crisis, the Fed, the ECB, and Bank of Japan have suppressed the cost of funds, providing enormous subsidy to bank equity holders and debtors at the expense of individual savers and bond investors. In 2015, for example, the cost of funds for the $15 trillion in the U.S. bank assets fell to just $11 billion per quarter. Prior to 2008, that number for quarterly interest expense was close to $100 billion. With the Fed now tightening its policy, both by raising the target for short-term interest rates and by allowing its balance sheet to shrink, U.S. banks are facing the prospect of rising interest expense and shrinking net interest margins. Now, based upon projections by Whalen Global Advisors, net interest income for all U.S. banks will cease growing by year end and will be visibly declining in the first quarter of 2019. In the event, the superficial narrative parroted by Wall Street pundits that rising interest rates are good for banks and other leveraged investors will be shown to be complete nonsense. Now, the banking profits since 2008 have been supported by cheap funding, not robust asset returns. Simply stated, banks in the U.S. are about to get caught in an interest rate squeeze of gigantic proportions. And of course, for the banks to avoid this, what does the Fed need to do? Well, they need to sell long-term securities, essentially reverse Operation Twist. Now, are they going to do this? Most likely not. Now, if the Fed does continue to do absolutely nothing, and they use this approach for policy normalization, then we are likely to see an inverted yield curve. What are we seeing right now? A flattening yield curve, which eventually will invert. Once this happens, there's going to be a sell-off in global equity markets led by financials, and finally, shrinking profits in the U.S. banking system early next year. These three eventualities may very well ensure that 2019 is a recession year in the U.S. Now, we know that Trump was out there saying, listen, I don't think it's a good time to raise interest rates. And he criticized the Fed. But he said, the Fed's doing what they know best. They're doing it for the country. And we know that the Fed does nothing for the country. The central banking system does everything for themselves. But we need to understand the whole motive behind all this. Trump wants them to raise interest rates. Even though he's out there saying it's not a good time, the message is, we want you to do this. I believe that Powell and Trump are working together. I believe right now that this is the plan for the Fed to raise the rates because they know it will bring down the banking system, it will bring down the economy, and it will be blamed on the central bank. While this is happening, remember, Trump and those behind him supporting them, what they've done here is they've placed tariffs on certain industries, especially China. And he's criticizing certain companies like Harley-Davidson, Apple, and many, many others, saying, listen, if you want to avoid these tariffs, you should bring your operations back to the U.S. Why is he doing this? The tariffs are to keep companies from moving out of this country. And it's to bring companies back to this country. And will it all happen at once? No. There's going to be bumps in the road where companies are going to say, well, it doesn't look like it's a good situation for us, and we most likely should maybe bring our operations out to a different country. So what Trump does is he starts placing tariffs on another economic industry and another industry and another industry where these companies will eventually have no choice but to come back to the U.S., basically making it impossible for these companies to operate outside of the U.S. because it's too expensive and to force them back into the U.S. That's what these tariffs are all about. Now, China and Russia, they are working with Trump on this. Now, remember, during the period of the globalists and the central bank, their plan was to move the entire operation out to China. Remember, there is a deep state central bank system in each one of these countries, and we can see that Xi Jinping and Putin, they're working against those factions, the central banks, the deep state. And remember, their plan was to move everything out into the China-Russia area. And what is happening right now is they're trying to reverse everything that was happening prior to all of this. Now, the central bank, the IMF, and the rest have been telling us that global growth is slowing. And this is because of Trump and his tariffs. Not necessarily. Global growth was slowing way before this. They knew this. They wanted an event. They wanted to cover it up, but they couldn't. So now they just said, okay, global growth is slowing because of these tariffs. Well, what we're seeing here is that global trade is declining. It has been for quite a while. Global trade is declining because the entire central bank system is imploding on itself, and it has been for a very long time. Supply chains right right now are seizing up. And we can see that the World Trade Monitor, compiled by the CPB, the Netherlands Bureau of Economic Policy Analysis, showed the rolling 3-month trade volumes are not only declined, but have entered into negative territory, an ominous harbinger of economic trouble. Now remember, this has been going on for quite a while. This is nothing new. The whole thing's just being sped up right now because they have no way out of this situation. So let's back up for a second here and see the plan that is in motion right now. Trump, the Patriots, they've been using the same manipulation that Obama, the central banks have used over the many, many years to make it look like the economy is doing well. So what Trump and the Patriots have done is they've accelerated the process. They've manipulated this economy to the nth degree to make it look like the economy is unbelievable right now. And that's the way it's looking. Now, the deep state, the mainstream media, they're not going to come out and say, hey, you know something? This is not a real economy. It's fake. It's manipulated, because all Trump has to do is turn around and say, well, I'm using the same calculations you've been using. How can you say it's manipulated? So they're not going to go down that path. Obama did come out and say, hey, wait a minute. I'm the one who started this, so this is really my economy. He's trying to gain ground over here, but we'll talk about that in a little while. So he's using manipulation to make the economy look like it's doing fantastically. During this period of time, and before this time, Trump has been getting rid of the globalist trade system. TPP, cut it right down. NAFTA renegotiated, started to have bilateral trades with many different countries. Started to place tariffs on China and other countries for certain economic industries, and expanded over time. Why? Well, to force companies back to the U.S. and to stop companies from leaving the U.S. This is being done on purpose, trying to bring everything back to the United States. So companies looking to leave will stay in the U.S. This will take some time, of course. We can't rebuild this in a split second because a lot of the infrastructure is not here anymore. A lot of the companies have been moved out of the U.S., so it's going to take time to bring companies back. Trump is going to have to change tax regulations for corporations to bring them back to the country, to make it look, to make it better for the companies to bring them back here so they can create the jobs here, to create manufacturing here. And China and Russia, as we know, they are in on the deal. So everything is being reversed right now. Tariffs are being placed on certain sectors, and he'll expand this over time. Even though the central bank and all the others are saying, oh, this is a gigantic trade war. No, this is orchestrated with Russia and China. It's all being done at the same time. And at the same time, Trump is criticizing the Fed about raising the rates and things like that. So when you put everything all together, you can see the plan in the way, in what they're trying to do here. They're trying to bring the country back to where it was. Now, can they do this in this short period of time and transition us and do everything? No. What's going to happen here is he needs to get rid of as much as he possibly can and bring as much as he possibly can and set up these tariffs to stop other companies from leaving and hopefully bring the other companies back into this country. This is working. Jobs will be coming back. In the meantime, we need to get rid of this system that we're in. This is a central banking system. And this is what's happening right now. So we're going to see a lot happening all at once. We're going to see more tariffs. We're going to see the Fed raise the rates. We're going to see the economy start to fall apart. This is the people's economy, and this is all going to happen at the same time. And the system will eventually implode on itself. Now, of course, what's going to happen is Trump is going to point to the Fed, or if the news comes out that these individuals in the past were corrupt, that might also bring down the system. So Trump looks to control the narrative. If he controls the narrative, he will control the transition. He will control what happens next. And it looks like they are gaining this control. And by dismantling everything else, it will make it a lot easier to transition us into the next system. Now, the U.S. eventually will no longer be the reserve currency. This most likely will move someplace else, backed by gold. And China right now is setting up the World Trade System, the Silk Road, the One Belt, One Road system. The U.S. will eventually join this. And this is a peaceful system where everyone's going to trade peacefully. It's not going to be done by force, having military come in, nothing like that. So this whole entire plan is, one, to make everyone believe, I'm talking about the deep state, the mainstream media, and the rest of the sleeping people, that the economy is doing well. The mainstream media can't really say anything. Place tariffs to stop companies from leaving and bring companies back, and place more tariffs on certain industries to bring companies back here. Change the regulations to make it a lot easier for companies to come back here where they're not taxed a lot. This way they can set up shop, build the infrastructure, and bring jobs back to the U.S. And then eventually down the whole system and reboot it or reset it and get rid of the central bank system. This is what we're seeing play out right now, and it's going to continue on until the whole system comes down, the central bank is gone, and we're going through this transition and restarting a brand new system where the people are in control. And this is why you need to be prepared, because we are headed in this direction. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.